for the part 2 of this session, which is our Fireside Chat. And we're definitely going to talk about Connected Health today and also DCT. So great segue. Daniel? Perfect. Anthony, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We can now stop the PowerPoint. So I guess my first question to you guys is, what do you think of these poll results? Do you agree, disagree? Is regulatory truly the barrier, or is it a scapegoat for lack of innovation? Oliver, why don't you start?
Yeah, actually, Daniel and I, we discussed about this point, and if you look at how we partner with the regulatory, they're truly part of our leadership team. We have dedicated people actually shaping regulations out there. But with MDR and everything changing, this is a key topic we have to strongly influence. And we're really putting a lot of effort in shaping FDA discussions and EMA discussions to make sure we not just find a decent pathway to influence policy, but also really kind of educating our FDA partners to what does the industry actually need. And Daniel, you're much closer to this. Maybe you can add a bit of your view from this side.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's also a complex, regulatory landscape because, in our connected ecosystems, we'll have different solutions, often falling under different types of regulation, from drug delivery systems, which are following the more the pharma path, through to digital therapeutics. And then all of this is on the backdrop of, computerized GXP systems. So there's many different regulations that all have to be knitted together. So I fully agree. This is one of the major challenges. And of course, we have differences in EU, the US, and rest of the world to overlay on all of those regulations as well. But, I think it's feasible. It's a challenge, but it's probably not the biggest challenge.
Maybe one thing, Olivier, to add here, it's not just about how do we get through in the traditional way, but in a few years, we have to switch to electronic submission to health authorities. And that means we also need to nail the data strategy piece and figuring out how we get the data in the right system to just press a button and then we have it in how they want it. So that's key. And that's definitely something we have to address together.
I totally agree. Anthony, what's your perspective on that in the context of decentralized trials, for example?
Yeah, thank you. It's I appreciate the poll, and I think, like my colleagues, that it depends. It very much depends on the technology you're talking about, and also on the country. We do see regulatory challenges for adoption, and I know COVID has changed the landscape for many of these things in terms of willingness, both on the part of sponsors and regulators. But I think one thing that we've seen is that it can be a challenge to adopt new technologies, especially for decentralized trials, if those technologies can't be used internationally. And I think, one of the primary examples of this that we've seen over the last few years, I would say, is electronic consent, where the widespread support among regulators in the U.S., IRBs in particular, ethics committees, clearly acknowledge that a learning tool for consent is better than a complex legal document that's on paper. But many sponsors, if they can't electronically consent all patients and all sites, they won't electronically consent any patients at any site. So, although we see more willingness now, I would say, because of COVID, to take on these decentralized trials capabilities much more quickly, we do have an ongoing challenge where we'll need to find some sort of synergy in thinking around the world for how these get used before I think many international global sponsors running global trials will really embrace them.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I also agree with you guys, and also agree with the culture being the number 2 here item on the list. I often see kind of a clash of two cultures, with the industry, the old generation versus the new generation, sometimes coming out of the industry, outside of the industry, from consumer product and other industries coming into pharma and really clashing. from a culture standpoint, hence the importance of change management, of course, and supporting our client in this important transformation. Often overlooked culture and change management. What do you guys think, Daniel, Oliver, on the culture aspect?
I think, in pharma, certainly there is, built on, solid backbone of drug development processes. So this is what we're sort of trying to unlock in a way, because moving into the connected health space, we're moving into products with much faster life cycle times. And the product system is becoming beyond just the drug, right? It's now a full ecosystem, which may comprise, injection technologies, healthcare provider support tools, a multitude of different things. So, what we're finding is that probably strategic partnering is going to be the way forward here, where we can bring in the agility of to develop digital products, yet be able to knit that together with the broader healthcare systems and the pharma assets or drug assets that come along with that.
Yeah, I think you nicely said it. I think pharma is, especially in the digital health space, we're moving away from doing everything ourselves to become the integrator, really strategic integrator. How do we use our wealth of experience in the regulatory landscape and our clinical knowledge to actually boost the marriage with medtech and strategic partner to actually win for the healthcare ecosystems, for caregivers, HCPs, and so on. But I also feel that culture is key internally. How do we tackle change management properly to move away from the classical financial EMP models from a drug to truly take the risk and give the agility to the teams to actually drive fast, kind of pushing a bit the boundaries for how it was done in the past to how we need to do it in the new digital world. And that, I think, is key. So how can we remove this risk averseness, which is inherent classically to our industry, because we had to be safe and everything needs to be highly regulated and quality is key. So that is, I think, a big thing we have to address together. And I think partnering on that point is going to be key. We cannot do it alone. We have to get your support to actually win together. So key area for us.
Totally agree. I love strategic integrator, SI, kind of new redefinition of SI. That's what love that. Anthony, we often talk about the license industry as being stuck in pilotitis. That's a famous disease of just being stuck in pilot. What do you think? What do you think? First of all, do you agree or disagree in a world of DCT, transformational trials, and what are the key drivers to be able to get out of that, and what do we need to finally scale DCT?
Well, first of all, I definitely agree. There's and I think we've already mentioned it. I've heard many references to this in the first hour of the meeting, right? There's certainly lots more patient focus and lots better patient-centric technology now than there ever has been before. But I think, again, we had an unfortunate pandemic that provided our industry with perhaps a little bit of a silver lining around willingness to try new methodologies. So, I think in the past, we've seen pilotitis maybe primarily stem from technology usage that wasn't seen as critical. So, we're apt to want to pilot things that we think maybe ahead of their time, or the sites aren't ready for them, the patients aren't ready for them. Maybe our organizational change management is going to be too complex to take that new product to some sort of like broad scale use within development. So we try a pilot, and the pilot is, semi-successful. It costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of small scale change management with just a few sites. And so we try another pilot, and then new competitors, new products arrive, and then you have to pilot those, right? So this is the pattern that we've been in our industry for many things. But once in a while, technology will break through that pattern. I think we are there now with many things, right? We saw it with EDC many years ago. We saw it with ePro, which is now broadly used as an aspect of decentralized trials all over. We're seeing it with sensors, wearable sensors. We're seeing it with electronic consent. And I think largely due to COVID, we now have many large organizations, CROs, and sponsor companies as well, thinking that a way to speed the development of many programs, the way that we did it for COVID vaccine programs, is to adopt these types of technologies and decentralize the patient oversight. So, I'm optimistic that some of the things we've been tinkering with for years in pilot mode now really are ready for broad scale adoption. And I think the market may also have that readiness.
Oliver, Daniel, do you agree on the pilotitis?
I think we definitely agree. I think Daniel and I discussed that as well. We do agree, but we've taken bold decisions at Novartis and really trying to move away from pilotitis, especially in the connected health space. We have fully sanctioned development teams under GDD, which are truly tasked to unlock that value, But Olivier, to be quite honest, it's still an experiment, and we are very tightly resourced, and need to do this in a very thoughtful manner. There has been put some bets out there, which we truly believe we can unlock significant value, but we have to prove it, and that's going to be key. And how do we work together to actually deliver that tangible value and generate that revenue, which is new? We're moving away from just doing digital to optimize the engine inside to truly using digital health to generate revenue, and improve patient experience and generate new outcomes, which haven't been possible before. And that's what we need to prove together. So definitely agree.
And maybe just to add on to that, I think, just to add on to that, I think one of the issues in the past is that not all elements of the ecosystem have been ready. We might have a digital technology, a drug delivery device, but then we need to work with, the healthcare systems, existing standard of care in terms of patient service models, the regulations, the legal aspects in different countries around data privacy. And so I think, pharma's often sort of been ready with the technology, but the surrounding elements of that ecosystem have not been ready. But I think, we're getting to a point now where people are pushing through, companies are pushing through, and that we do have those ecosystems coming together quite nicely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ecosystem. You nail it. I mean, you clearly see that as so critical actually to be able to really scale up DCT or connected health or any innovation in this space. Do you have any specific examples of where, for example, Anthony, where you guys partner with other parties to actually indeed deliver value to your clients, other than obviously the technology players, but other stakeholders within the healthcare ecosystem?
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. We've got, many of these new technologies launch whole industries, in some cases of sort of wraparound service organizations, partner organizations, especially in the decentralized trial spaces now, where we're seeing some very interesting startup activity for, virtualizing site support. Obviously, things like home nursing networks that never would have been used in clinical trials so much before, are now a primary aspect of a decentralized trial strategy. And then, I really enjoyed Emily's comments earlier around connected health, but there's just a massive ecosystem of devices, right? These wearable sensor devices. They are technology vendors, but they also, they have bespoke, very different data infrastructure. They have lots of services. They have lots of expertise in the kind of specific regulatory environments for their device around the world, and so on. And these types of partnerships are critical to be able to put together a strategy. Then I know one of the key topics of today's conversation is the change management aspects of this are enormous. And I know, at Capgemini, I know you're expert in this and you see it all the time, but change management to bring together from a pilot to a full-blown decentralized trial strategy is a huge initiative that many times is an undertaking that requires partnerships, like many different types of partnerships.
Indeed. Oliver, do you have any stories at Novartis of how you guys are able to partner with different type of players, not only tech companies, startups, but maybe providers or payers, to be able to deliver that value that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I think even I think Emily was talking before. I think it's not just even payers and traditional tech companies working with us, but it's even up to university. We have like partnership with McGill University around the amblyopia case we were all working on. So I think this is going to accelerate. Even in the decentralized science, and I think you all know we're working with Science 37 and those companies. This is public information, but this is going to go way beyond. And we also want to look into how can we learn from our partners in the industry. You're going to have discussions with AstraZeneca. How do they do business in this area? We really need to work hand in hand to actually accelerate this. And we actually look also to Capgemini to be our extended arm in delivering many of the high risk digital health endeavors we're going to embark on in the long run, because we believe that you will only be able to build internal design and strategic capabilities, but the breadth and depth and the foot soldiers you need to actually do this at scale globally, we will not be able to hire internally. And that's going to be the key area where we need to work together with other partners. And being able to use our Biome brand, where we tap into key startups, is going to be key in this, because many things we'll have to license in. There is like dosing algorithms and other pieces which we need to close the loop, which are going to be coming from licensing deals and partners. So that's something Daniel, you're closer to the very daily business, and I know your teams are integrating sometimes 70 partners in one program. So maybe you can add your notion.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you said. We have sort of, academic collaborations. We also have, partners delivering certain services, particularly around, let's say, human factors or software as a medical device development. But actually, we are looking for sort of more, partners that can take more of a holistic approach, because, otherwise, the list of vendors that can be necessary to pull off one of these ecosystems is very, very extensive. And also time consuming as well, managing all of those different interfaces.
I think maybe one thing also we should keep in mind is the localization. I think you started with local regulations and so on. So I think in China, we need to work with the WeChat and Tencent. In the US, it's very different EMR integration with Amalgam and so on. So having a partner which can manage that integration is going to be key.
Globally.
Yeah.
Let's go to nerdy topics, because I love to be nerdy. AI. Where do we see, and when we will see, and truly AI infused everywhere, meaning infused in a DCT experience, for example, every step of the way. Same with Connected Health. Is it this year in 2021? Is it 2022 and beyond? And what could be the impact? Anthony.
Well, not everywhere in 2021. I guess I'll start there, but let's maybe we pull back from AI a little bit and just talk about analytics. And again, during the previous discussion, there were some very interesting examples of things like recruitment or helping to find patients or designing trials that need fewer amendments. We work with studies all the time that are amended 5, 6, 7, 8 times during a trial. We're doing some very interesting work at Medidata and Systems and synthetic control arms, right? So reusing prior data to be able to create a control arm and therefore recruit fewer patients. So the way that we like to talk about it as part of our decentralized trials platform is analytics everywhere, and maybe some of that becomes more AI leaning. Some of it's just straightforward reporting, reusability of information, and synthesizing the data in a way that it can be most useful to users. And maybe just one last thing I'll add to that is that patients are important users of analytics as well. And we don't think about that because we typically shy away from showing patients any data that might influence the way they behave on the study. But more and more, our decentralized trials patients are very tech savvy. They're very savvy about clinical research. And in fact, the whole world got a serious lesson in how clinical trials work during COVID. And we're now finding more and more patients that want to have access after a study to their data and the analytics that go with that. And they want better analytics help in finding the most appropriate next study for them to be on so that they can choose a trial that's a best fit for them. So I think these are all very interesting new developments.
Absolutely. Oliver, where do you see AI in Connected Health? Where and when?
I think we have various efforts in this, especially AI and ML. So I think Anthony, you started. There's a vast amount of data from all the wearables and all the platform devices we have connected auto injectors, apps, and everything. So we have built like a key data backbone where we integrate all this data going forward. So we have taken platform investments to be able to scale Connected Health in the long run, and we see actually a key thing is actually to not just have that data coming in, but being able to correlate the data and send it back to the key healthcare player. So what is the push when a patient uses a device to the HCP? What's the push of the data we need if somebody has used it to actually prove that to the payer, So how can we actually make sure that we have all of this data flows more and more automated? We don't want to have a labor intense kind of process where we all need to do that manually. That should be as much as possible using machine learning and AI to actually push those notifications, similar to what we do now with our sales force. We're kind of looking at all the discussions they have with the HCPs and trying to push back the setup for the next kind of visit they have. So I think this is the vision where we're going to be. Definitely not 21, definitely not 22, but this is what we need to work together on.
Maybe just to add on to that, I think, will it be everywhere? Probably not, but some areas that we do see emerging as as a trend. And I think, building on the analytics piece, I think one of the things that we can do in Connected Health is try to reduce the burden of healthcare practitioners and the repetitiveness. So, just as an example, if a clinician is looking at an image and trying to make an assessment of a disease, how can we make their life easier with algorithms that can look and support the assessment of that disease. And then you can imagine that AI building on multiple hundreds, thousands of images that have all been analyzed. You start to get a real powerful tool that can be able to assess disease, right? So that can then start to really reduce the burden on HCPs and reduce the time spent doing this. But it can also support more robust decision making in smaller clinics or areas that aren't familiar with doing this sort of analysis. And then you can even extrapolate that to then supporting dosing and scheduling, so reducing patients' visits to clinics to get certain treatments and that sort of thing. So I would see that space as probably the first to emerge in the AI Connected Health.
That's great. Very, very exciting indeed. Let's do some predictions here. I love predictions. Let's start with 2022. What do you think is going to happen? Not in terms of return to the way of working at the office under the office, but in terms of really innovation. Are we going to see an acceleration of innovation of what we saw in 2021, or we'll see somewhat of a kind of back to somewhat of a stabilization, back to normal, from a technology innovation and digital transformation specifically? Anthony, what's your take on 2022?
Well, I think the main trend that we're starting to see already is a broader adoption of those technologies that are ready. So, I'm always hopeful that there will be new innovation, and certainly we focus a lot on that. But even if we just take the old innovations, meaning, the things that have been piloted for 5-6 years, we know they're safe, we know they work, we know they're scalable, we know they can be used in many countries, if not most countries, most of them. A broader adoption, a more kind of fluid way of integrating those types of technologies into more studies, I think will be the trend that we see over the next 12 to 18 months. It's part of the no going back movement where, and that's an important part of it. Let's take these let's take these liberties that we got during COVID that worked well and continue to adopt them. But again, I think I've got to pull things back to the patient burden as much as we can. There are many of these technologies that quite simply make life easier for patients and getting through complex protocols easier. And at very little risk to us, very little risk to those of us that are running the study. So I think we are looking forward to kind of a broader adoption strategy by many of the customers in this space.
Okay, Oliver.
I think somebody was, I think it was one of the WEF guys who wrote the book. I think COVID is here to stay, and especially the effects of it. Going to be the new norm. New economy is much greener. We stay more at home. This is the new norm. I think we're going to travel less and everything. But I truly believe that this innovation is here to stay. We are more and more connected in the long run, even more isolated sometimes socially, but still I feel the globe is getting more and more connected. So I think one of the key challenges I see to truly win is actually changing the models. We make it attractive for everybody to actually do it the new way. Because you see telemedicine has picked up significantly during COVID, but it also dropped down when people went back to the normal visits, because it's just a different incentive for the HCP. He gets paid in different things. So how do we make sure that we actually learn from big tech players how they incentivize the people to actually give their data? And this is going to be the key for us to rethink how we do business, because the classical way won't work anymore.
Daniel.
Yeah, I think where a source of innovation is going to come in the next 5 years or so, is really kind of different industries, collaborating, with their own different types of technologies to come up with, a blend and infusion of different things coming together in connected health. So, I can think that pharma brings expertise around maybe drug delivery systems and the tech world around, data and so on. And those things coming together probably will lead to an acceleration of innovation, of hybrid things coming together. Absolutely.
So you guys are all positive, which is awesome. Love it. Love the optimism. I totally share it, by the way. And then to wrap up, 2030 now. Your prediction, what is the future of life sciences company? Is it Apple? Anthony?
It's Dassault Systèmes, of course.
What is life sciences company in 2030? What type of product, what type of company? Quickly.
So maybe I'll just expand for one moment on the idea of synthetic control arms. One of our big focuses now, and we see the movement in this direction coming in many ways from sensors and other types of mobile health data that we're collecting. But, Dassault Systèmes has a robust program developing in the concept of digital twins. And I think where we really would like to push the envelope over the next few years, and we'll be optimistic about 2030, is being able to go from things like a regular control arm to a synthetic control arm to a full-blown digital twin kind of capability where we can get much more singular about the type of patient profile that we're researching. And we can get to the point where, we are engaging in personalized medicine opportunities to write specific studies like that and exposing as few patients as possible to the actual experimental therapy. And there are some big important strides being made in that direction now. Because of the volume of data, as many people have touched on earlier in this meeting today, the volume of data is immense, and it begins to give opportunities to create things like a twin type of technology that we could use.
Exciting. Oliver, your 2030 prediction?
I think, like the industry will definitely change by then. I don't think that like the Google and Apples will marry with big pharma. I think there needs to be different business model and needs to be healthy tension. But I also, you see, we have like at Novartis, we have huge partnerships with Microsoft. We're working very, very closely with them. Huge partnership also with Amazon, which is definitely since years pushing strongly into healthcare sector. But we also work with Tencent and many others. I truly believe we need to marry the best from one another, the best from tech, the best from how they treat data and make business out of data, but also the best of how do we come closer to services, what we can learn from you. How do we put design in each of our products we do at Novartis much, much stronger, and I believe we all need to bring our best selves to the marriage, and then we can win, and truly change customer experience and reimagining what the patient really gets from us, because I think we can do much more if we work together.
So well said. Daniel, to wrap it up.
I agree with everything's being said. I don't think we're going to see a huge merger of pharma tech coming together. There may be smaller spin-offs that attempt to do it, but I think probably the secret of success would be the kind of depth and breadth of pharma marrying together with the right partnerships in the tech world to really come up with, the connected health systems of the future. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, all three of you, for this Fireside panel. Love the interaction, love the topics. Really, really excited, and indeed, this is just the beginning of a very exciting journey. I'd like to also thank my colleagues who co-presented with me today, and thank you all for joining us for this Intelligent Industry in Life Sciences session. I hope it was interesting and fascinating. It was for me. So thank you again, and have a great week. Bye-bye all.